You are live on YouTube.
There you go.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Government Ops meeting. Call it to order. All in favor of, do I have a motion to approve of the minutes from last month? Motion by Mr. Leggett. Second by, well, we don't need a second. All in favor? Opposed?
Abstain.
Abstained. Okay. All right. So we had one abstain, two in favor, and that passed. Okay, let's go right to the agenda. We're going to go with the county clerk first. Everybody have that, the government county clerk paperwork in front of them? Okay. All right, Sue Ann, I will turn it over to you and you got the show.
Thank you very much. I'm Sue Ann Linehan. I'm the Deputy County Clerk and also in Pistol Permit Services. And I'm here for Pam today. She's submitted a notice of intent to fill a vacant position. It's in our records room. It's recording clerk number 1. The base salary is $35,491, a grade 7. And this is to replace an employee who has resigned. So I don't know if
Okay,
you have any questions
we-
about.
Okay, Sue Ann, we have a motion to bring it to the floor by Mr. Leggett, second by Mr. Wild. Do we have any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the, do you have a comment, Mr. Leggett?
Joanne, it's great to see you here. Thanks for coming. Does this take a bunch of training for this recording clerk?
Pardon me?
Does this take a bunch of training?
Yes.
It does. It
Okay.
does. It's a constant learning process. They have to become familiar with many different documents and what needs to be on those documents before they can be recorded. We have a great staff to train them, but it will take time.
And we're losing a veteran.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
She's staying within the county, though. She's gone to another department. And the bad thing is we don't have a list to call from. So at this time, you know, we haven't had good luck lately with our attempts to get people to even apply. And so if anybody knows of anyone,
Yeah.
Mr. McGowan, would you like to apply?
Oh my
You had
God,
your-
the
you had-
list is so long.
You had your hand up.
chances would be good.
Okay. Mr. Gary would like to put his okay that you'd be good for that.
Me and records. right?
Yeah, any other discussion? Okay, any other discussion? All right, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Gary, thank you. What else, Sue Ann?
that's it for today.
Okay, very good. Very
Thank you
good.
very much.
Thank you.
Joanne.
Thanks for coming. That ended that. Okay. Next, we're going to go right into our discussion item, which is the Warren County law pertaining to the sale of fireworks. Just to give you a little bit of an update, we did a survey, as people know, asking the people of Warren County what they thought about the current law, their comments. I can tell you that 54 people replied, which is a fairly decent amount. 47 were in favor of banning the fireworks law. 7 were in favor of the fireworks law. And I'll just read 1 or 2 comments here from what we received. I'm not going to read all 54, obviously. 1 comment here: I opposed the sale in Warren County in 2015 and remain in opposition. Our complainants and the use of fireworks by untrained private individuals has increased substantially each year. Our county has several attractive professional shows for our residents to enjoy safely. Many of our weekly shows are now followed by several others that create havoc and complaints from our residents. The sale of fireworks allowed annually on specific dates have no redeeming value for Warren County. Unsightly tents, by out-of-state firms. Selling to untrained individuals is a disaster waiting to happen. And finally, this person said, our residents are well served by their desire to enjoy a good professional show each Thursday by our weekly vendors. Local sales make no sense, create numerous complaints are unsafe. That was from Mayor Robert Blaze. I think everyone knows him here in this town. I'll read just one other one. I'll read one that's in favor to give it a little balance, although again, 47 were opposed to the law, 7 were for the law. But I will read one that was wanting to keep the law. As soon as I can find it. Emails in favor, okay. Okay, this person says, there's not a problem with fireworks in this county. Stop listening to the 5% of the population of this county that wants to complain about everything. As it stands now, we don't even have fireworks. We have sparklers and fountains. If you outlaw these relatively harmless devices, you will only drive residents to out-of-state sales of mortar-type fireworks, which are much more dangerous. Just because they are louder doesn't make them right. 95% of the residents don't complain about fireworks, correct? That was a question he put in there. Let's listen to that silent majority. Also, what does the county make in profit off sales tax from the sales sites, which are here only 2 weeks a year? That was from Jimmy, the guy named Jimmy. So now you've heard one for keeping it and one for not keeping it. I'd like to now ask Supervisor Dickinson, because he was the one who wanted to bring this to government ops. I'm going to give you the floor, Supervisor.
Well, I think you pretty much covered the issue there. The mayor certainly has a handle on it. He probably knows more about fireworks than anybody in the county. I just think it's an issue I did in 2015 when we passed the law. And I think now that we have some experience with it, it really doesn't benefit the town or the county. And we've shown that it is something that is created a good number of incidences, mostly with children. That's what they do with these sparklers. They let kids use them. And I told my kids when they were growing up, there's 2 things you should know. If it moves, it's dangerous. And if you light it, it's dangerous. And I still feel that way. There's no need for them. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to get this committee to support a resolution to rescind the law from 2015 so we can bring it to the whole board.
Thank you, Supervisor Dickinson. Do we have discussion on this? Supervisor Bramer, then I think I saw Supervisor Garrity's hand.
I am a parent of still somewhat smallish children, and we do use the sparklers and it is fun, but you really do have to supervise them. So I'm very concerned about this because it's not just the sparklers, it's those other ones that allow more of a blasting and popping and that kind of thing. I'm curious, there's on our agenda about the Director of Emergency Services providing some information. Did that already happen at a prior
No,
committee meeting? Maybe.
Well, we're going to hear from Anne Marie shortly, very shortly. In fact, if you want to take the podium, are you done, Supervisor Bramer?
I'm done. I want to say that I didn't get a chance to read through all of the comments, but there are definitely a lot of people who are concerned. And I know in the city, there are a lot of residents who are concerned about the noise because it can go off all around you and you really don't have any idea where it's coming from. We're a pretty densely populated area. So it's a concern. I think most of the people in Glens Falls are opposed to the continued sale.
I did read all 54 responses, and many were from veterans. Some were from dog owners, saying that their dog goes crazy during the fireworks and runs out of the bed and is, and veterans with PSTD PSDT have expressed real concerns. So that was some of those 47 that were opposing it. I'm going to give it the floor to Mr. Garrity, then Anne Marie, would you take the podium, please? We'll hear from you also.
Well, my take on it real quick is when we did institute this law, sometimes around the 4th, there seems to be a lot more lot more of these, a lot more fireworks. And I don't think they're the legal ones. I think a lot more of the illegal ones go up. We get a lot of calls and, you know, we have a fireworks law in Warrensburg that the only ones that can put them off are professionals. And it just seems to me like when it's in that era where you allow them to be sold at the tents, they go off quite a bit. And I think this would help law enforcement with their, to enforce the fireworks law, where maybe they would do a little bit more of a, I'm not going to say better job, but if we didn't have a law allowing the sales on these certain areas, then you wouldn't have to worry about listening to fireworks. And I know I've had the sellers of the fireworks, you know, state their case to me, but it just seems like we get a lot more fireworks now that we passed a law in 2015 than we ever had in prior years. So I can vote to ban the fireworks.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Supervisor. Anne Marie?
Is that his resolution?
Okay, last time, if you recall, Anne Marie, I asked you to get some data for us. Do you remember what that was?
Yes, it was statistics regarding some of the injuries that occur based on fireworks and sparklers. So the Consumer Protection Agency puts out a study every year of firework injuries and emergency department treated injuries. So there's a little bit of a difference there. They were able to report on 2020 figures, and the Consumer Protection Agency reports on nationwide figures. They don't break it down by state. So what I found is that in 2020, there were an estimated 10,300 fireworks related injuries, and that's a nationwide number. They did, however, go on to say that of those, they broke it down into ones that regard or needed treatment specifically in the EDs. 1,600 people were treated in emergency departments across the country for injuries related to firecrackers, and 900 were for sparklers. So they were able to kind of break it down to give you a certain percentage. So 66% of them were treated for firework related injuries. I was able to find from the Department of Health, they had information regarding New York statistics, but it was for 2019. They had 140 New Yorkers required care from emergency departments. So that's what we had for New York State.
Yeah, I did read a report though on the complaints. Are you aware of that, Anne Marie, of the complaints filed for fireworks? I apologize. I thought I had it here and I don't, but they were up significantly, the amount of complaints from the public concerning fireworks in the last year and a half. Now, you know, anybody could make a rational reason why they're up and so forth. Could be because the law was passed in 2015 and now people are just getting more involved. It could be because of COVID. People just, I don't know, you know, no one does. So we're just guessing. But I'm just saying though, that sheet showed the number of complaints up significantly in the last 18 months. Yes, Mr. McGowan, then Mr. Wild.
Yeah, so you have no number that you saw, it's just that.
No, I saw the numbers. Yes, there was numbers, and I thought I had my paperwork from last meeting, and I don't. I'll find out where they are, and I'll send them out to everybody. Mr. Wild?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I struggle with this because my sense is that legal fireworks are not the types of fireworks that you're going to hear a couple doors away or a couple blocks away. It's the illegal fireworks that we're talking about. I'm not sure if this is really going to stop that problem. If we stop the legal fireworks that are just sparklers and little fountains of spray. Granted, they are dangerous. You need to be careful. My kids and I have used them when they were younger, and I taught them like Supervisor Dickinson did. You know, you need to be careful around all this stuff. I'm just curious if this is just a reaction to the fact that we have much more illegal fireworks in the county than we thought we ever did. So is this really going to drive the change in attitude of our constituents? Or is it just going to put more pressure on the sheriff's office because they're going to be running around for all these illegal fireworks? I don't know. But I just doubt whether this is really the true root cause of everyone's complaints. And, you know, as I think about it more, a sampling of 50 emails over policy or a population of 60,000 people isn't quite a statistically valid solution. But I do want to make sure I recognize the fact that people are complaining. I haven't liked the fireworks that I've heard in the middle of the night. They aren't the legal fireworks. Right. So I'm just, I struggle with this. And I'm not sure this is going to give us the result that we're looking for. And I'd like to hear somebody help convince me that it is going to give me the result we're looking for. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. Supervisor Driscoll, then Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you, Chairman. A couple of analogies. The city of Glens Falls has an open flame law. I would love to build or purchase a fire pit for my backyard. I would be a criminal if I did. Certainly, there are properties in Glens Falls that have fire pits. If it's a propane fire pit, you can have it. If it's wood or any other product that burns, you're not supposed to. The fact that there's a law there in place does monitor, and it does decrease the number of individuals who have fire pits in their backyard. Law enforcement can't enforce catch everyone who does, but it's just like burning fire leaves. You can do that in other parts of the county. You can't in the city of Glens Falls. So those laws are there to minimize, I think, the instances of that happening. We have open container laws that prohibit individuals from having a cold one in public parks and properties that aren't their own. That minimizes the number of individuals who are drinking out in public. It doesn't catch all of the people. The kids down at Haviland's Cove in my ward, but it does minimize that. So I'm in favor of discontinuing it. When we were younger, growing up just north of Cape Cod, we would drive up to New Hampshire to pick up our fireworks that we set off at the beach. By the time the police came to catch us, we were long gone. The fireworks were done. We were long gone. But again, there were some people that didn't want to get caught, didn't buy the fireworks. So again, it decreased the number of individuals. Right away, you're not going to, but over time, I think it's going to have a major impact in decreasing the number of people who purchase these fireworks, whether they're from the tents or from outside the area, outside the county or outside of the state. So thanks.
Supervisor Bramer, did you have a comment?
I did. I wanted to say, I agree with Supervisor Wild's concerns about some of the complaints we're probably getting, because I'm getting some in the city too, are probably ones that are not legal under our county law anyway. And, will repealing that even make a difference? And I think, like what Supervisor Driscoll said, I think it will help make a difference, because law enforcement won't have to come up, roll up to a piece of property and say, well, is that a 3-inch one or a 2-inch one? Does that shoot, 5 feet in the air, which is allowed? I'm making up these numbers, but I think it'll make it a lot easier for the city police and the sheriff to be able to roll up and say, those aren't allowed, period. So you've got to stop. And one of the comments in here is from a business owner who says they try to restrict them in their, it's a campground. They try to restrict them in their campground, and the law is making it very hard for them to be able to even convince their own customers that they can't use them, because the law allows them to use certain ones right now. So I think it's right to repeal. I guess my one thought from a compromise standpoint, which I try to usually come up with, is do we allow them only on the July 4th weekend? So it's not this extended thing where people are having them go off around them all the time.
You can't.
Go ahead, Supervisor Garrity.
But aren't they only sold on certain twice a year. That's it. You can't, I don't think you can use them. year
I don't
round.
think that applies to the usage. I think you could stockpile them and use them all summer long if you want to. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
You can.
And one more thing, while I still have the floor, I hear what Supervisor Wild is saying about comments, but we do have to go to a public hearing on this, right? Because it's a change in a local law. Is that correct?
Ryan? is
So
that
we'd
correct?
have another opportunity for
Yes.
public comment.
We'll have to go to a public hearing since we are changing local law. Supervisor Leggett, did you want to?
I think Chairman Beatty that Supervisor Wild brought up a great point. I noticed in news that comes out about this, it's just titled fireworks. Most people think fireworks are explosive devices. What we are talking about is the sale and use of sparkling devices. It is a very limited amount of so-called fireworks that go on in the county. Most of them are very quiet, and they are not the ones that are really disturbing the population at large on it. All the same, they are can be dangerous. But this rescinding of the sale and use of sparkling devices is not going to stop the use of all the loud fireworks, things we commonly call fireworks. Those have never been allowed by county law, and they will continue with or without us as it is. And this is just taking care of a very small portion of what's available. I must say, I lit off a bunch with the granddaughters on July 4th. It was very safe, and they just had a blast with these small things. It really made a big difference because we didn't go off to the large crowded July 4th fireworks events and stayed away from that. So we were able to celebrate the independence of our nation at home as allowed by this law. I see that rescinding this law would take away such a right and convenience being legal, but there's we'll just keep it more low key next time.
Any other discussion? Yes, Supervisor Bramer.
I noticed that our old law does talk about regulating the sale and use of sparkling devices, but then it only talks about the sales being restricted through a certain time frame. Are we allowed to restrict the use as well to a narrower time frame than what we originally passed?
I believe as a local law, we can do that if this committee and the board so decided, correct? Robert, I'm going to ask our county attorney for a little
I've been
opining
writing-
on that.
I've been writing down some questions and things here for me to look into with this, and I wanted to look into that too, and it was something, and Supervisor Garrity had kind of indicated to it too about, when are these fireworks being sold? Are they only being sold around the certain holiday times, like 4th of July for a week or so before it and things like that? So I wanted, yeah, right. And so I wanted to look into it and see, restricting the sale, but what about the use of it as well? Could we restrict the sales to a certain time period, or we want to restrict the use in that? So I wanted to look into that and find out more about what can be done that way, and let everybody know, of the supervisors here for the committee, let you folks know so that you can take that into consideration.
So you're going to research that, is that what you're saying?
I'd like to look into this more, if you don't mind. Yes, please.
To see if can be some restrictions on the time frame. Is that what you're
See
saying?
if there's restrictions on the time frame. See what more we can do to customize this in a way that might work for the county better.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Driscoll and then Supervisor Wild.
I just had a question. I mean, I see the tents. Is it like 10 days, 2 weeks prior to the 4th that they set up their shops? Or
It's a few days. I think it's got to
No, this law says June 1st.
Is when they're available to be
June
sold.
1st?
30 days.
Yeah, I think it's
30 days?
They usually come in a month ahead of time.
Oh, is it a month ahead?
Yeah, I
Okay.
believe it's more than 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I'm not sure of the exact time frame. It sounds like to me it's a little more than a month that they can be sold.
I
And
mean,
so,
I would think that there would be a time period where it wouldn't be cost effective for them to be in if you limited it to 10 days, they may not be able to do that, So I think, if you did limit it,
35 days in June till July 5th, and then December 26th through
Okay.
the 2nd, January 2nd.
So
It's a lot narrower in December.
okay.
so it's narrow December, but it's 35 days in June and July.
So you load up.
Oh, right, okay.
So yeah,
You're right here.
Supervisor Gary suggests loading up in June and July. Mr. Wild, did you have a comment?
I did, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. As I think about this common sense or being practicable about what we're doing, I don't know where you can get them if we deny this. Can you go across the bridge to South Glens Falls and get them in Saratoga County? Can you drive over to Washington County? New Hampshire is 2 hours away, right? Pennsylvania is a little more. So, maybe we should just talk about it, just reinforcing a general ban on fireworks, if that's what you want to do. Because you're by creating this local law, I don't think you're going to get the result that you're looking for. Well, rescinding the local law. I just don't, I wonder if we're going to get the result we're looking for. If people can go across state lines and bring back a truckload, which is what I heard secondhand from somebody that did this year. Filled up the back of their truck, went to New Hampshire, a few $1,000s worth of fireworks, and they're back in the county. How are you going to stop that?
Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Yes, Mr. Driscoll?
Thank you. And I understand Supervisor Wild's comments, but a number of communities and counties are going to kind of face a similar question with marijuana dispensaries in their towns or in their counties, and their neighbors in the next county, may set up a big operation. It's up to them to decide what is best for their own communities, and I think that we can't be looking as much as where if they're going to cross the bridge or if they're going to head over to Hudson Falls. I think we've got to look out what's best for our own constituents and not worry as much as what our neighbors are going to be doing. My own.
Okay.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Wild, yes.
I'm just going to respectfully ask Supervisor Dickinson to jump in because it's Lake George and there's issues in Lake George and whether he really thinks this is going to make a difference.
Okay, I will.
Put him on the spot.
Okay, I will ask Mr. Dickinson to opine.
We don't allow a sale in Lake George that you do in the county. We have no effect from that. There are two issues here. One is the sparklers and the other is actual fireworks. It doesn't mean that one's not important or more important than the other. My belief is that we don't need the sparklers. They're not necessary. We don't generate any income from them to speak of. And I think the tents are unsightly. Circus atmosphere, the banners and what have you, they show up and a month later they're gone with their money. So I don't see any need for it. And I don't see any reason why we shouldn't withdraw the law.
Thank you, Supervisor Dickinson. So what's the pleasure of the committee? Do we wait and hear from Mr. Tillinger next month? What do you want to do? Anything, nothing, everything? Yes, Supervisor Wild.
Thank you. I'd prefer to wait to hear from our county attorney and whether or not we can institute a modification to that says there's a ban on local fireworks. I thought there used to be one in New York State as a whole. But let's see what we can do about making it clear that fireworks, personal fireworks, aren't acceptable in Warren County. It sounds like that's what the goal of this group is. I'm not sure if I'm totally good with that as being a pyro guy every once in a while on the 4th of July. But if that's the way the board is going, then that's probably the resolution that should be put forward. I'm not sure I'll support it, but that's
So what-
where I think we're going.
Okay, so you want to wait till next month and we'll
Yes.
hear from the county attorney. Okay, Mr. Wild, any other thoughts on the committee? That'd be Mr. Conover, Mr. Leggett. Okay, they seem to be fine with your suggestion. I can tell you that other counties, some counties across the state are now rescinding their fireworks law. Not all of them, obviously, but I'm just saying there's some that have relooked at this whole issue and are rescinding it in certain counties. It's up to each county across the state to make their own call. So, all right, it sounds like a reasonable request. Mr. Tillinger, you've got your request to get some more information from us.
Thing on your list.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Supervisor Dickinson, for bringing it forth. And we'll move on to the next item on the agenda then.
Thank you. I appreciate your.
And we'll discuss this. Will be on the committee docket for next month. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Anne Marie. You did a great job. Thank you very much. Okay, let's go to our referral and pending items. Number one is the referral from the Economic Growth and Development Committee to discuss issues regarding the difficulties facing small broadband companies. I'm going to open that up and ask if Supervisor Hogan would like to comment on that.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
You're more than welcome.
So what we're finding as we're digging into the broadband grant program rollout is that New York State has simultaneously given out grant money and on the other hand, put great barriers in front of some of the smaller companies who are trying to implement that broadband grant program. From Kevin Lynch at Slick, we've heard, and he spoke at my committee, that they're making them not only pay an extra tax along state routes. So imagine, if you will, my town that's bisected by 2 major state roads. He's got to pay taxes on every bit of fiber he rolls out along that, but they're also making them survey as they go, which is an incredible expense that these small companies are incurring. So I'd like everybody to be thinking about the kind of advocacy that we can engage in to help these companies, because quite frankly, another thing we found out in preparing the NTIA grant was that was the grant that went in last week, was that some of the larger companies just simply don't care. They're not coming to the table. As we were trying to pull together all these different providers to say, okay, if we get this massive grant, who's going to provide the service to these unserved and underserved houses? It was the small guys that really stepped up to the plate. And so, how can we help them to do their job? Because the big guys aren't real interested. That's where we're starting. Ryan, did you have something to add?
Thank you.
No, I couldn't have said it better myself. And I know there are a lot of state policies, in my understanding, that could be looked at here to make it easier.
Supervisor Hogan, you suggest we do a resolutions in support or just a discussion item?
It's really just a discussion item. I
Okay.
think that, I just wanted everybody to be thinking about it, keeping your ears open, looking for opportunities to advocate, and maybe back through my committee, we'll bring Kevin Lynch back again to talk about it and specifically what he'd like to do. Because I think, yes, we need to support it, but it's also one of those things we're going to have to take to intercounty.
Okay.
It's been through intercounty, but maybe a new iteration of it. Yeah.
Okay, Supervisor McGowan.
Yes, thank you. This has become a hot topic with a lot of people, especially with the latest rate increase from Spectrum. And, to me, I feel Spectrum is a monopoly, and supposedly there's a commission that's supposed to monitor all this, just like National Grid, Niagara Mohawk Day, stuff like that. But nobody has any choices. and why a big company wouldn't want to come in to bring in some more competition. Because I wouldn't be surprised if they did, that everybody would just jump ship because they haven't had the option. And that's something that I really would like to see is, or what we can do to entice all these companies to come in to bring in some more, competition. One for, because right now there's only one company that we have to deal with. So if you want internet, through a cable, you have to go here. And it just, I don't understand why the state and the government can sit there and say, well, we're going to dump all this money in. And a lot of the stops are based on the state's prices and taxes on all this stuff. So, I sometimes I just think they're talking circles, yeah, well, we got to do this, we got to do this. And who's it going to benefit? The state, the people need to benefit from this. So, I don't really know what the answer is, but it's just very frustrating. And every time you call up your cable company and well, there's nothing we can do for you, or this and that, or we can't change that because you're in another, you're in a promotion that seems to every month, like mine, seems to go down a small percentage every month until it's all done with. And then I'll be back at the premium price. And I can't even sign up for a business program without stopping my services for over 30 days and, to try to save some money. So it's just very frustrating that really we're all caught in this cycle of there's nothing we can do. And Supervisor Hogan just said that even the smaller companies are being tied up. And that's where I think we have to look at we need some more force upon the state to ease up some of these taxes and regulations. The states don't own the road. The people that pay the taxes own the roads. So why are we taxing to use the roads? Taxing for using, road frontage for this cabling. I just don't understand it.
Thank you, Supervisor McGowan. County Administrator Moore.
Yeah, I wonder if there is a resolution or a set of resolutions that have been adopted by intercounty that we might bring back to this committee and support those measures coming out of Warren County as well. And it would be decent timing, I think, to do that because we'll have a new administration in Albany and they'll be working right out the gates, basically, on starting off next year's budget. Maybe we advocate for some of these changes to be placed in the state budget.
We do,
Go ahead, Supervisor Hogan.
and we will.
Okay, good. So you bring those from intercounty to us so we can, if the committee deems appropriate, support those and maybe through a resolution, whatever. Okay. Any other discussion on item 1? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to jump to item 7 only because Supervisor Hogan has to leave. So Supervisor Hogan, number 7, go ahead. That's a referral from the Finance Committee regarding the abandonment and cleanup of Town of Johnsburg tax map parcel 133.8-1-27. And to consider exploring the possibility of adopting a local law permitting the county to hold property owners of polluted properties who abandon them accountable and be entitled to recoup any money spent on these cleanup efforts. Did you want to opine on that, Supervisor Hogan?
Just very quickly, if you don't mind. Thank you, Mr.
Sure.
Chairman. I'll leave you guys to debate the local law about compelling people to help pay to clean up. But I just wanted to give my own perspective. This garage, Mosher's Garage, has been a blight on our community for over 25 years. It's a site where the DEC had to come in and remediate a spill. They cleaned up all around the building, but the horrible building with its collapsed in roof remains. We need to take it down, and then we'll have to bring the DEC back in to clean up the more contaminated soil that they know sits underneath the building. As you're considering the law, this was, not just neglect. This wasn't a failed business. These were people who just actively walked away and left it and didn't pay taxes. for decades, decades. And this kind of thing happens all over the place. I know Supervisor Leggett had a situation in his town where this happened. I believe the Mullins property came out of a situation like this. But, you know, we should put some teeth in something that prevents people from just walking away like this. Because I know in our particular circumstance, the people who owned this property own multiple other properties in my town that they do pay taxes on. So I don't know what happened in particular to this property, but it was a very conscious choice that was made. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Hogan. Is there any other discussion on that from the committee members first? All right, seeing none, I see Mr. Garrity first and then Mr. McCollum.
My question to Supervisor Hogan, have they tried to apply for spill money to clean up the property? Has anybody at the county, I guess it would be, who owns the property now?
Well, the discussion that you're having today is not the discussion of the cleanup of this particular property. That's coming through Dennis's committee. You guys are supposed to be discussing whether you want to pursue some sort of a law that compels past property owners to help with the remediation on these properties. But yes, we've pursued, you know, this is moving its way through environmental and real property and in the appropriate way.
Okay, thank you. Do you have a follow-up, Mr. Garrity, or does that suffice?
Well, I have, this is the first government ops committee I've ever attended, so.
And you're enjoying yourself, I know that.
Yeah, I am. And so this would be, you're asking government apps to create
Oh.
a law?
We have this on, if the committee deems that they'd like to create a law or a motion for a resolution to create a county law, that was up for, that's why we put it on discussion.
I know in real property tax, we created something in real property tax for the sale of these properties. And we gave the purchaser 18 months to bring the property up to, so it can get a CO, correct?
Mhm.
And we did that. So maybe something to look at. I mean, this one's been out of the barn for a long time.
Yeah. And I think her point was it's being abused in her town. I guess there's some other cases where it's, you know, people walk away, they own other properties, they walk away from the one that's the problem. The county ends up getting it and absorbing, or the town.
Well, I'm well aware of
Oh, yeah,
that
you know,
because
yeah, you know
they
that
had other
probably.
properties and we gave them a timeline to pay up or close, and they paid up on the other properties. I'm surprised that this is.
So you're saying maybe a town perspective.
Town could certainly pass a law, but if the
Okay.
county wants to, we got to look at the big ramifications.
Okay, Supervisor McGowan, then Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you. I think this kind of generated really, I'm not saying for me, but I was really offended on this particular one property because they were a major property holder up in Johnstown. Also, they had a huge lumber mill in Thurman that they sold off. And in this particular instance, you know, the land got polluted under their use. And at the end, they just divided up all the other properties and they let this one go to the taxpayers. And it's going to be very hard for me it's hard for me as a Queensbury resident to tell, hey, Queensbury, you're going to have to pay 32% of this bill for this. And that's the way I look at it. And, you know, and all of us. So, you know, but we have nothing on that really holds them liable for being able to do this. And this is just not happening here. This is happening all over the country. And, you know, and it's a shame because why don't I pollute my property and then move away? You know, why do I try to keep it up? And I'm not saying it was done purposely, you know, maliciously and, you know, or, you know, and it wasn't, the point is that they knew it was polluted and they walked away from it to hand it over to the taxpayers. So how do we stop that? And that's my whole gist on it. And I think we need to, and the thing, I think it needs to be done at the county because from my understanding, most of these properties that come from towns that the county takes over and the county makes the town whole and the county takes the hit. I mean, am I right on that? Most of the properties come back to the county.
Okay, I'll address that. Are you,
Yeah, I guess I'm done.
you still, okay. It was Mr. Leggett, I believe, next, and then Mr. Garrity. And maybe one of those people will address that question also, where I can, but go ahead, Mr. Leggett.
I would imagine there's already rules at the state level about being responsible for your own pollution, being liable for it. I'm just wondering if it's a matter of us going after it.
Okay, so you're,
So,
okay,
I would think we don't need to make a law. There's got to be something. I know what Brad is saying about where we're left holding the bag, but somewhere else, is there something where we lodge a complaint, press charges against somebody for polluting? Love Canal was a long time ago. We've come a long way. There should be something out there already on the books.
Mr. Garrity.
Well, my question was for the county attorney. I mean, for a long time, when these properties were in, not going up for taxes, the county never touched them. So you got to remember that this property's been up for taxes for a long time. And Warren County didn't do anything about it because it had alleged pollution on the property. So we stayed away from it, Brad. So we're comfortable a little bit until we said we would use the sale from our auction to create an environmental fund. So for a long time, though, the county would not touch these things. I think, Ron, you remember, we would not touch these properties.
It's practice.
Okay, you're not recognized yet, Mr. Supervisor. Thank you. You still have the floor, Mr.
No,
Garrity.
I was just saying, for a long time, we didn't touch these properties, and I don't know, Robert, and then we created this environmental fund to start doing it. So this is not something that just happened. This has gone on for a while.
Okay, it's Mr. Wild, then Mr. Conover, if you'd like to be recognized. Mr.
Thank
Wild.
you. I hear it. How do you legislate this? Are you going to ask everybody that has a business that might potentially pollute to put something in escrow just in case they decide to walk away? I just don't even know how this would work. So if we go this way, I'd like to have Robert help, try to figure out whether there's something in state books that we should just start to enforce, or we need to do something on our own, but I'm just not sure how this would work.
And that's one of the things I'm actually looking at too, is I want
Robert, would you like to be recognized?
I'm sorry, yes, could I be recognized, Mr. Chairman? Sorry for butting in, but that's one of the things that's an interesting question I want to look at too, is to make sure we're not precluded from going after some of these. The DEC operates as the enforcer for the state on environmental pollution, and the EPA does it for the federal government. And I want to make sure that we wouldn't be precluded from doing that by the state law saying, well, the state does it and that's it, and you can't do it. And the same with the federal one. There are some instances where private citizens and others can bring a lawsuit on behalf of the state or on behalf of the federal government for some of these kind of things. But the money recovered, a big chunk of it has to go back to the federal government or the state government for recovering the money on the pollution. So that's another end of it. I want to make sure we can get around some of these. I mean, you can definitely do what's called like a common law or equitable action against it for pollution. On the county end, one of our problems would be what kind of damage can we say the county suffered from it? We'd have to have damages after the fact, like the cost of cleaning up their property and taking it over and testing it and cleaning it and that stuff. And that's a good, like after the fact, after there's already been damage and after the county's already incurred a lot of money, we could go and look at that route of it. I'm also trying to hope, is there a way to kind of be a little more proactive, and maybe I shouldn't be going there on it, to try to help, something we can do to try to head off some of it before we have a problem like this property that had been sitting around for many, many years, owing back taxes, accumulating a tax debt to the county that's probably never going to be paid off by the value of the property. And in addition to it, having an expense of environmental cleanup and testing. a lot of that's been paid by the state, so the state has money in it, so they're going to want to hand out for some of that as well. It's the way I can kind of try to head some of that off so we don't have these sitting around for decades like that.
Okay,
That's part of my project.
there you go. Any other comments on that? So I guess the will of the committee is let Mr. Twillinger do more research on this also. I'm not even aware there's a state law, Mr. Leggett, so there more than likely is, like you mentioned.
Mr. Supervisor Conover wanted to speak.
No, Mr. McGowan, you're not,
Yeah,
you don't
well,
have the floor. No, I've already asked Mr. McGowan and he said no.
you
But
stepping
thank
aside?
you, Mr. McGowan, for
Like
jumping.
what you say.
Thank you, Mr. McGowan, for trying to assist. We're gonna have to. Okay, all right, so that's where we are on number 7. We're now on your agenda. We go to number 2, discussion to continue regarding the draft resolution distributed by Supervisor Bramer entitled Resolution Establishing a County Charter Commission. This was back a few months ago. So I'll give the floor to Supervisor Bramer.
Thank you so much. I don't know if it's still in our packet, but yes, there it is. You know, the idea that we establish a charter commission, I think that this is really important for us, and I do not see the harm in us at least establishing a commission to give us some options and look at what we're doing. I pulled up there are a couple of resources readily available where this resolution actually came from. There's also another one, Coons. You guys are probably familiar with it, with local municipal government. That's a technical series that provides information to local governments. I want to read from this a little bit. It talks about what a charter must do, may do, and may not do. It says that a county charter must prescribe the structure of the county government, provide for an elective legislative body to determine county policy, exercise powers of local legislation, and appropriate money. Also specify the agencies and officers responsible for the performance of functions, powers, and duties of the county. Provide the manner of election or appointment of certain officers. Then it says it may provide for the appointment of county officers or provide for their selection by any method of nomination and election, assign executive or administrative functions, powers, and duties, provide for a county executive officer who may be elective or appointed, provide for the transfer of local government functions and duties among the county and the cities, towns, and villages in the county, provide for an administrative code which sets forth details of administration of county government, the terms of which may include existing laws and regulations, and new. The code must be consistent with the charter since it would implement the provisions of the charter. Provide for the termination of terms of office of incumbent officers upon implementation of the charter, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I know that there have been some concerns in the past about, you know, where's our overarching document that lays out all of our policies and procedures and regulations. All of that would be in a county charter and in our administrative code, which we don't have. We're still operating on the original establishment of counties system, Board of Supervisors, that was basically established at the time New York State was established. So I think knowing that we have a budget of $160 million and that we have a lot of professional departments, I've said this before, we should have a chance to look at our county structure and see if there's something that we can be doing to run our county more effectively, efficiently, and professionally that as we can, given that it's now 2020 and it's not 200 years ago. And I did ask Ryan for some assistance. I know he pulled a few numbers for today. If you would let him speak to that, that would be great.
Okay, thank you Supervisor Bramer. County Administrator Moore.
Oh, sure. I have a couple of documents that I haven't read yet, but they're in a folder I take home every night and have since April. One of them Claudia referred to, and another one is a NISAC document about county government organization. But just to give an overview of who does what in New York State, if you look at the 57 counties that are not New York City, 23 of those have a county charter. 23 out of the 57. If you take the median population level and you look at everything below the median, we're several counties below the median. That median is Cayuga and we're 1, 2, 3, 4 counties below them. But if you look below the median, at that lower half of counties, population-wise, if you will, 3 of them have a charter. Those would be Herkimer, Montgomery, and Sullivan. County legislature versus board of supervisors. There are 39 county legislatures and 17 boards of supervisors. If you look at the subset in the lower population half, it's 15 legislatures and 14 boards of supervisors. So it's fairly evenly split there. For county executives, you have 18. Only one county that's smaller than us has a county executive. That's Montgomery County. If you look at those who have county administrators or county managers, there's 32 overall. 22 of the lower half have county administrators or managers. And there are 6 counties where the Board of Supervisors chair is the administrative head of the county. Those are all smaller than we are. Hamilton County, for instance, is one of them. Bill Farber is, I believe he's still chairman, but he's also county administrator.
Follow up.
Can I ask a
Supervisor
question?
Bremer?
Yeah. Are any of those on the list that have a charter also have a board of supervisors? Is it possible to do both?
That's a good question. So far, I'm seeing no.
I don't think it's prohibited though.
I couldn't answer that, but so far, none of the county charters that I'm looking at have a board of supervisors. Right? No, so none of the, no. But whether that's permissible or not, I couldn't tell you without doing more research.
So your suggestion, Supervisor Bramer, is to have the county look at a charter commission? Is that what you're saying or not?
Yeah, I would like us to establish a charter commission, which is simply to evaluate what we have going on, what our options are, hear public input. There would be a provision for public hearings, public comment period. And then the charter commission, which is a body of people, would come up with a recommendation or recommended point of view.
Okay. Supervisor Wild?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've heard this brought before this committee and from in front of the board from time to time, and I really don't understand why. I get there's a change. I've voiced my concerns before about potentially losing the voice of all the different towns in this county because we are very different, up county versus down county. I don't see any issue with our current one person, one vote, the way it's structured. We have a representation of all the people that are in this county. And I think it's been deemed in court to be appropriate. So I just need to understand what is the purpose of that moving forward. I hear being more efficient, but being more efficient doesn't mean you're necessarily right. Right? It's the more voices that you have for clarity about the different issues that go on in this county, help me make my decision. I sit here as a member of the Board of Supervisors of Warren County. I do get placed here by the members of Queensbury, but that's not my sole determination in terms of how I vote. Right? I'm here to support the county. Queensbury next.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So what my request is can I get an issue of the pros and cons of each situation that we have, a Board of Supervisors and a commission or a legislature, and have possibly the supervisor that brought this forward come up with that for us so we can have a debate before we go to the level of having a handpicked commission come up with potentially a predetermined answer. I'd like to know where we are, where we're going, and what the purpose of this is. And the best way to make a decision to move forward is understanding the pros and cons of each. Thank you.
You're welcome. I believe the commission would be all volunteer, so it wouldn't be handpicked, other than to say someone's gonna, this committee would have to select the volunteers, but they'd be no party affiliation or anything like that. But anyway, yes, Mr. Conover, and then Supervisor
First, let me
Bremer.
just say that the Bolton Town Board had passed unanimously a resolution just totally opposed to this entire idea. I know a number of other towns did the same, and I suspect the second point is this came before the committee voted no, and now it's back before the committee. And just as a general rule, in terms of Robert's rules and democratic processes, that is really a poor thing to do. It frustrates the process. It frustrates. This came before the county, I don't know, 4 years ago, Kevin, 5 years ago.
May I answer?
Are you asking a question, Mr. Conover?
Well, I'll finish my statement, then Kevin can edify if you'd like. And it was overwhelmingly turned down. Claims were made that it was illegal. They went to court. It was determined to be legal. And what's really interesting is that of the 5 people of the 20 that voted for this idea the last time, 3 are still on the board: Bramer, Beatty, and Sieber. And so here we are. And so here we are again. If you look at all the metrics, we have a wonderful form of government. The metrics on this government, both in terms of finances and in terms of our tax base and in terms of taxes, in terms of the operations of our departments, are rank among the highest or lowest, depending upon which one you want to pick, like on taxes, anywhere in the state. And what's really great about this form of government and something that I really like, and I'm someone, by the way, that served in a legislative form of county government. I'm not sure Ms. Bramer can make that claim, although maybe she can, but I don't believe so. And I was asked once what I thought about the supervisor form of government, and the response I gave was, I find it refreshing. I find it refreshing that no matter your size, you have a seat at the table. Even the smallest among us, the Thurman, has a seat at the table. And some of the wisest and most sage advice we receive as a body politic comes from some of the smallest among us. And I've often said for many years, Fred Monroe in Chester sat next to me, and he was one of the clearest and finest voices we had on this body politic, and he certainly did not represent the largest weighted vote amongst us. So so my board has made it their position absolutely known. They're the people that are elected to represent our community, and that's really pretty much what I have to say on this. That I think this is a terrific form of government. I think anyone that says otherwise is frankly misinformed. And the other thing too is we had one Bolton constituent also read a letter that some of the smallest among us pay the most of the county levy. That's another thing to keep in mind. Some of those small northern towns now pay over half the county levy, and we're going to take their voice away from them. The last time it was to create 3 legislative seats, to take the home rule away from 10 communities. 10 communities. That's what they're advocating. Now, they can dress this up however they want to dress this up. But these are the same people that signed on to that they would take the home rule away from 10 towns. A terrific form of government. And oh, by the way, the counties adjacent to us, both Essex and Saratoga, are supervisor forms of government. And also 2 of the more successful counties in the state. So maybe what should happen here is the legislative form of government should be thinking about supervisor form of governments. And just one other thing, creating another layer of government is not the answer. And not just because it adds to the cost of government and the insulation of government. It's not the answer because the kind of intermunicipal cooperation that exists between the towns and the county across the entire spectrum is terrific. Because people know in the towns, for example, that they can call their county representative. The county representative has office hours. They can come in and see their county representative. In a legislative form of government, those people have jobs. They have jobs. They don't have office hours. They don't even have offices. And the idea that it's somehow magically, somehow it's a different form of operation, those legislative form of governments, they have committee structures as we do. And how do I know that? Because I served on those committees. But they also have executive executive branches with county executives that are vested with powers, and those become the operational side of county government. Whereas here, we are like the towns, both the executive function and the legislative function are invested in the board, just as they are in town boards. And so I'm completely opposed to this idea. I was 5 years ago, I think it was. I was opposed and voted no when it came to committee, and now it's coming to committee again. Well, my position has not changed. Thank you.
Supervisor Bramer.
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. First of all, I want to say I don't believe this actually came to the board while I was on the board. I haven't been on the board for decades, but I can certainly understand why some of the town supervisors would not want to lose their county salary. But I will say to you, after you just went through that giant, I'll say to the committee and to the public, the concern about town voices is I think it's unfounded in one respect, and in another respect, it's why I am pushing for a county legislature, because I do want there to be an equal voice up here. Each of you have a town office. You can sit there. That's your full-time job. Us as at-large supervisors, as Supervisor Conover just said, we have jobs. We do not have offices. And I think I still do a very good job representing my constituents. However, I think this is unfair. I think it's unfair that there are certain people on this board who have a full-time job where they are their town supervisor, and there's others of us who are part-time legislators. And I think it would be a much more fair system as if at the county, we were all on the same page. We were all county legislators. We all represented our constituents with one person, one vote. That is not what we have right now. Right now, we have certain supervisors who have outweighted control for the amount of constituents that they represent. And I do not believe that having a county legislator for up-county towns would in any way weaken the voice of the town issues that are there. Moreover, we don't really have a lot of town issues coming up at the county. Town supervisors handle county issues, and they could certainly work with their county legislator if there was any overlap between town and county issues. But right now you've got people on this board who are really focused on their town thing, and maybe they're not as focused on the county issues, and that's okay. But I think overall, to provide more consistency and representation to our constituents and more fairness and more efficiency, we should have a simple legislative body with equal votes, one person, one vote, based on the number of constituents that you have in your legislative district. And I would say that if it is more efficient, that is better. I'm not saying we have a terrible government here, but I am saying it is frustrating. There are things that are maybe not working as efficiently as they could be. And again, what is the harm in having a commission look at the options and tell us where we can go from here? And I wholeheartedly agree with not making our individuals' constituents' voices not be heard. What I want to do is make sure everyone's voices are heard more clearly at the county when they are being represented by their county legislators.
Thank you, Supervisor Bramer. So at this stage, would you have one? Okay.
Yes, I'd like to rebut just a little bit of what Supervisor Bramer just stated. And I have no opinion, but I see a lot of the up county supervisors and members of town boards. And there's one particularly, I believe it's Clinton County, and they read the paper, they know what's considered. And he specifically told me at one of our last APA local government meetings, they do feel disenfranchised from their county because they have a legislative board. They said they don't get much representation. So I'm not sure that's 100% accurate would say. I do take issue with keep bringing up efficiencies and this and that. And I've heard that numerous times from Supervisor Bramer, more efficient, more efficient, more efficient. We've made a lot of changes in this government in the last 10 years. And our department heads, I think, do a great job here. And to keep beating it, we're inefficient. Well, in the last year, we've lost 60, 70 people out of county government. And I have to question why we're losing so many people out of county government. But I can only say that coming from a small town up north, that town, and he's a town board member, he's not a supervisor, he's a town board member, said to me, you don't want to change to a legislative form of government. That's all. And just please, inefficient. I've heard it and heard it and heard it. It's sort of.
I'm not talking about our
Okay,
department heads.
Excuse me, don't
Supervisor.
interrupt me. I don't interrupt you.
Supervisor, speak to the chairman. Thank you.
Point of order. I don't interrupt anybody.
I just asked, I just
Okay.
shut her down. So.
Thank you. Thank you. And it just bothers me. I keep hearing how inefficient we are in Warren County. We're not inefficient. We do a great job and our tax rate is good. And I think we work very well for all the communities. I don't come in here predisposed about my community. When I'm down here, I come looking for what's best for Warren County, whether it be the city of Glens Falls, the town of Queensbury, or the town of Stony Creek. So that's the way I do my job. So I take issue with some of those comments.
Thank you, Supervisor. Point of clarity. You mentioned about the retention rate and the resignation rate. Warren County had from January 1st to July 31st had 5.6 resignations, 5.6% resignations. That is a phenomenal retention rate because I'm somewhat of an expert in that, being in the retail business. So when you only have 5.6% of your employees resign from January 1st to July 31st, I'd be willing to bet that's probably one of the best in the state, if not the best in the state. So, I just want to make that a point of clarity that the resignations that are occurring, in fact, we heard one today, they're going for a better paying job. That happens. We've had 41 resignations since January 1 through July 31st. That's from Jackie Figueroa as of this morning. So I just wanted to clarify that. Okay. You're welcome, Senator. Mr. Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm just curious. I'm not sure how that fit into the current discussion, but 5% turnover rate, comparing government to retail, I'm not sure if that's the right way to go about it. I would rather compare government to government. But then again, I'm not sure how that relates to our discussion about legislative commission, charter commission. So again, I'm going to maybe, if we can all agree, let's understand the pros and cons about going through this effort before we proceed. Why can't we understand? I don't understand it. Saying more efficient, I agree with the prior speaker. I don't see it. One person, one vote. I think the town of Warrensburg is very different from the town of Stony Creek. It's very different. Well, I don't know. It's different from Bolton, right? There's different economic drivers that happen. There's different issues, whether it be housing, whether it be transportation, whether it be whatever. There are those voices that appear at this table all the time that help us make the best decision we can move forward with. So I implore Mr. Chairman to request that we get a more detailed review of the pros and cons of moving forward with some type of change to this form of government so that we can actively discuss the issues. Right now, it's just our opinions. Thank you.
Thank you. I was, why that discussion, the numbers I gave out, Supervisor, was a direct question or a statement from Mr. Supervisor Garrity saying the numbers, and I wanted clarification of that, which I supplied. That's why. Mr. Moore?
Yeah, not to belabor the conversation, but this is an interesting point to me. I made a note too, because we were talking about, something came up on Friday where we were talking about people leaving county service. I compared it to this time last year. This time last year, we were at 48. So it's fairly similar.
Yeah, we're at 41 resignations through the end of July, which is a very phenomenal rate. Now, Jackie Figueroa is actually getting the numbers from Essex County, from Washington County, which I asked her to do, to give you a comparison county governments. So, thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Conover.
Yeah, listen, Claudia, you're entitled to your opinion. I'm not saying you're not entitled to your opinion. It's just not an opinion that the town board of Bolton or its supervisor for that matter shares. I think our diversity is our strength. I think we should be celebrating it, not destroying it. As far as I'm concerned within the process, the process will work itself however it works itself. You've had your say, we've listened, and I'm sure the committee will take it under advisement, and as will the board. And that's really all I have to say on the matter. I understand that's your opinion. It was your opinion before, it's your opinion today, but hopefully it's not the opinion of the majority of this body politic. Thank you. And if we could move on, are we ready to move on or?
No, we're not.
No.
Mr. Leggett had a comment.
Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, if I may share my screen.
Sure.
This is from a presentation I gave back in 2017 when it was before the Legislative and Rules Committee that to go to a legislative form of government based on the unconstitutionality of the weighted vote system that we have, which our county attorney defended, and the county won the suit, and it is a constitutional thing. Take a look at this map right here. This is Warren County. Look at the size of this county. Look at the size of the county. Look at the land map. Look at the size of Johnsburg alone. And find me the city of Glens Falls, and you compare the two. Now, this nation was built with a bicameral system. We have the Senate, based 2 per state, and the House of Representatives, 1 per 500,000. So we do not have a bicameral setup. We're not allowed on county government for it. It would be a county legislature. And that county legislature is going to be based upon population. It has no regard whatsoever with the physical characteristics or the economic characteristics of our county. And to be able to then center all of the political power into the small little corner of this county down here, if we put in right down and through here, does an injustice to everybody else laying outside of that area. The best form of government, as we look on the wall across here, there are 12 towns and a city up here. And the best form of government is by recognizing what we have to begin with. The grassroots of any government is at the town level. And by us supervisors and at larges being here, sitting at this council meeting, is the best representation that the people have. We have a diversity. We have a diversity that comes together. We debate and we work out what is good for the county overall. And the county is a mediator between the town and the state. To go any further, I think is totally unnecessary. And personally, I cannot go any further with this subject because the town board, 5 people, includes the supervisor, but 4 of the town board members have sent a message along with me to this table here that they are not in favor of a legislative form of government for the county. That is coming directly from the people. If there's others that are feeling disenfranchised in this county, we have to ask, why do they feel that way? What is going on? Because the rural population of our county does not feel disenfranchised because they have us sitting here bringing the voice to them, and they have us to call, to contact, saying, that county road, what about the congregate meals? What about the Meals on Wheels? What about the public health going out to visit people? All of these services that the county provides, we are there. And because we sit here, we have knowledge of what's going on. It empowers that there was and I'm very offended by this proposition that somehow a legislature a legislator is going to be more professional than any one of us. That is totally absurd. People are people. There are county legislators that are probably not professional that are sitting in that position. It is not a guarantee whatsoever. And to think that we are any less than that we are any less of capable of running a government. And we're not talking a big one. It is a $160 million budget, but that is not huge. This is totally manageable. And with 20 people, we can do this. Let me scroll through these slides here very quickly that the Warren County Board of Supervisors violates the 14th Amendment. That reason was thrown out. It's not a balanced and fair government, but it doesn't recognize the diversity that come with it. We've had a long fight, so on and so forth. This was all related back to the one person who won one vote. We've come a long ways, but there's still more to do. There's still more to do. That as that was going on, there was even who would get counted in voting districts. By having districts does not satisfy the problems at hand. We can satisfy the problems at hand. Everything from even having a compendium of policies, you do not need a charter for that. Just say government ops, pull together a compendium of all the policies in the county, and it's done. So we're equalized. We don't need to throw out the baby with the bathwater on this one. And so how do we get this right? Supervisor Wild pulled out the most salient point about this whole discussion. Why? What is the need? What is the need? It has not been proven. It has been alleged, but there are no facts. There is no outcry from the populace that we change. So let's get this right. And this is how we do it. Let's define a goal big enough. What this county really needs is a comprehensive plan to guide our decisions.
I agree with you on that.
Thank you. So,
Okay, I'm sorry.
so, and with that, I will sum up. Thank you for your patience on running through here. And if we just take these 4 items that were proposed back 4 years ago, I think we will accomplish a lot what the esteemed supervisor from Glens Falls is bringing before us.
Okay, I'm going to close this discussion. One final comment, Supervisor Bramer, and then
Okay,
it's closed.
really quick, because I do want to clarify that I am not saying our department heads are not professional, nor am I saying that we are not professional. What I am saying is that we have great department staff and we shouldn't all 20 of us be running them. Look at us. It's at 2:00, we were still going through regular committee meetings. That's not efficient. That does not empower our department heads to make decisions without a body of 20 people telling them what to do or not to do, when they are the ones doing the legwork. And each town is different. All I'm asking for is equal representation. One voice, one vote. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to close the discussion on this.
Supervisor Beatty,
Yes.
determination of whether to keep this as a pending item or take it off the list.
We have to decide whether to keep it as a pending item or to take it off.
Yeah.
Well, the committee should
Yes,
decide
that's what
that.
I'm saying.
The committee should decide that. So do we take a vote on that?
Do the consent.
I could do a consensus. I'll just do a hand. Who would like to have this taken off as a pending item? Okay. All right, it's the majority. Okay, thank you. All right, let's go to the next item, number 3. I guess we, according to Mr. Conover, we don't even need to discuss this, seeing that that's already been passed. So we'll, without further ado.
I'm sorry.
Well, we've already discussed this. It's already been passed. It's now a law. The county passed it last Friday. So Mr. Conover referred to why do we bring up things that have already been discussed and passed. So I I'd like to follow Mr. Conover's lead and it's already done. There's no discussion now.
I
Honestly,
just-
it's already raw.
It-
Mr. Wild, do you have a
in-
question?
In relation to that, it's just a little frustration. This committee, I thought, was structured to be the one that does all the local laws. This one was referred, that my request back to this committee, I think in May. It never happened, but it went through other committees and went to the full board. Now, everybody knows that I wasn't happy with the way the financial disclosure was modified. I saw no need to it. But this is more of a circumvention of the committee process that it should have been here before it went to the full board, because this is the committee that supposedly does local laws. I'm done. I understand this discussion on this one point is done. I crossed it off to begin with. But correct me if I'm wrong. I thought this committee was the one that was going to do all the local laws and any kind of modification to the local laws. Didn't happen in this case.
Each committee is allowed to take up any issue they want. So one committee is not allowed to just say, I got to take up all the issues. Other committees, if they feel it's within their bailiwick, can also put things on their agenda. We can't stop that. I can't stop that. I know that. Yes, Supervisor Bramer.
I had forgotten that this was on here per Supervisor Wild, but if I recall correctly, the board as a group of 20 did pass a resolution to send that to a special committee, which was how that came back to the Board of Supervisors without coming through here.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification. Okay, well, that's all. Now we go to number 4, referral from Criminal Justice Committee requesting a letter of support for funding to the District Attorney's Office to assist with the additional costs incurred in relationship to the discovery reform. Do I have anybody who wants to, Supervisor Wild?
Mr. Chairman, I'd support a motion to do this. I'd just like to see the language before it went out. Our district attorney did a great job explaining the troubles and the issues that he has. But I'd like to see the document. So if we can, from this committee, approve that to go to the full board, and we'll get a chance to see that letter prior to it going to the full board, if I'm not mistaken on the process.
I don't see a problem with that.
No, we just need to draft a resolution.
Okay, so we'll have, well, if this committee decides to go forward with that, we'll have the county administrator draft a resolution and send it to this committee. Would we then need?
No, Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'd like to have a motion for our county attorney and our county administrator to help draft a letter in support of item 4 regarding the district attorney's office issues with discovery and the need for support from the state to help make this happen. So if we have as a motion to do that, we could approve it and it goes to the full board once that letter is done. We don't have to come back to the committee. Why wait another month? Is I guess what I'm trying to say. It's been a long morning.
Okay, yeah, I think that's what we were going to do, but what if Supervisor Wild, you don't like the language in the resolution?
It goes in front of the full board and then we'll modify it if we don't like the language. It's done all the time, isn't it?
I don't know if it's done all the time, but okay, I don't have a problem with that. If this committee wants to go that route, that sounds fine with me. So we have a motion on the floor to support the DA. The resolution will be made up by the county attorney and the county administrator. And
Letter as opposed to a resolution.
I think that's what he was looking for, a letter.
We could write, I propose we write a letter speaking, we'll borrow from the items that Jason brings as to the hardships that his office is encountering. We'll include a piece in there about the statewide funding for indigent legal services.
Yep.
And request state funding in the next state budget for district attorneys.
Okay, I'm fine with that. Do we have any discussion on that before we take a vote?
That's a good idea. I wonder if we could craft that enough where we could put it forward in front of intercounty as well and be adopted by others to add steam to the engine.
Sure. Okay, so any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
All right.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. discussion regarding the law pertaining to the sale of fireworks on the committee. Well, we've already done number 5. I believe we've already given direction to the county attorney to do some further research for us. So we can pass on 5. We've already taken care of that. Number 6, referral from personnel administration to higher ed, requesting that a letter be sent to the state indicating counties were required to spend most of their own funding to cover the cost of changes made by the legal system by the state. So that was just done also. So we knocked off 2 birds with 1 stone there. All right, privilege of the floor. No one's here. All right. Okay, Mr. Conover.
Um, And I'll try to keep this on the highest plane possible. I think that, as you know, I've sent some of my ideas to the county administrator relative to modifications, additions, if you will, to the our policy as it relates to accessing IT information. And I think that I don't know how long it's going to take to develop some amendments. I've asked the supervisors to forward their ideas as well to the county administrator, give this some thought as to what our correct procedure should be as to should it be determined for cause that we need to access the IT department relative to certain departments that we need to spell out how that's to be done. And because I don't think that presently exists. And but I think between now and then, I think that that there should be some type of instruction to the county administrator and the county attorney. I don't know that I would call it quite a moratorium, but that there, I don't want the language to get in the way here, but that there should be some, there should be no, until such time as a policy is developed, that no utilization of the IT department to search county records by individuals should be entertained until we have a policy that we all can agree to. A policy is going to have checks and balances. Number 1, most important, that's going to protect our employees. Number 2, in terms of unnecessary, and also to maintain some level of confidentiality. I think that's important as well, because after all, you're innocent until proven guilty in this country. And I think that we need to have a process that, to the degree possible, can ensure that, so that we don't find ourselves in a situation where somebody's been publicly embarrassed and totally unnecessarily. And so, and also a process that I think is more governmental in its character, that depoliticizes or ensures that it's not, that a politicization of the process doesn't happen. And so I think that it's, I would believe it's probably government ops that should advise the administrator and the county attorney, I think probably via the clerk's office, that until such time as that the board adopts a policy, that there be no, that if the reports of the access are correct, that no further access of that nature take place until we have thought this through and that we've acted as a body politic. Because it's sitting here today, I don't know what to believe. I mean, I'm hearing lots of stuff. I have no primary information. I read in the paper that the Post-Star that apparently Warren County has denied something. I don't recall being part of any decision denying anything. So I don't know if the Post-Star got it wrong, that it was certain individuals that were denying the charge, because I don't believe the county did. I don't believe anything was brought before us to deny anything, because I don't think we have any information, primary information relative to this matter. And so I want to try to be fair to everybody involved. But I think until we have some rules to the road here, I think we need to instruct, I think in writing, via you, Mr. Chairman, the county administrator and the county attorney, that until we the board has come to, wherever it's going to be on this issue, that there should be no further, that there's nothing, if anything has happened, there should be no further access, is what I'm saying. Am I being clear? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
You know
hear
what I'm
you.
saying? And I don't want to judge anything. I'm not in a position, but I am concerned when I hear stuff like this. I am concerned about good government. I am concerned about what are our processes? Because in the absence of rules, there are no rules, right? There are no rules. And so, you know, and we should all have to share the responsibility for that. You know, it's the same thing back when, you know, dealing with some of the Roberts Rules things that, you know, that we need to understand, commonly understand what the rules are. So I provided some ideas to Ryan. In fact, I just had an addendum, if you will, Ryan, that I think that the determination of cause should be a joint determination by you and the county, or the county administrator and the county attorney. So there's even that check in terms of the determination of cause. You see what I'm saying? In other words, it shouldn't fall just on one person. It could fall on the county attorney and the county administrator together. They have to agree that there's cause before such a search or even entertained. And so I'm even thinking more about even some of the ideas that I've provided to the county administrator. So I would encourage everyone to do that. But I think that we do need to send, I think, in writing, a letter to the county administrator saying, you know, we need some rules here, and until such time as we have rules, there should be no administrative actions on this front. Thank you.
I believe there are laws in place already, but I'm going to have the county attorney, I'm going to give the mic right now to Mr. Moore.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the concept of rules to the road. I just would like it to make the point, to have the proviso here that the reality of what happens here, my office is contacting the IT department virtually every day for email records. And it's because the Board of Supervisors made me the records access officer. So in the course of replying to FOILs, that's the context that we're talking about here. It's what is my office to do when email records are FOILed? So I'm not going to be able to abide by, to complete my duties as records access officer if it's a blanket prohibition on my office reaching out to IT. So there would have to, I don't think that's what you mean.
No, that's not what I mean. And
Okay, please address the chairman, please. I mean, you just can't jump in here, guys. This isn't the Wild West anymore.
Yeah.
Would you like to speak, Mr. Conover? Okay.
Yeah, no, we previously discussed this. This is apart from the FOIL process, and this has to do with administrative access to IT information and how that's done. And I think that, you know, that's where we need to do some homework on our part. And I don't know where it's all going to end up. That's the other part. I don't know where it's all going to end up, but I know it's going to have to end up somewhere. And so, but I think that we need to provide that guidance going forward until we get there. Because otherwise, I think our administrative staff really doesn't know what to do, right? There's nothing to do with FOIL. It has nothing to do with foiling of information. It has to do with how we administratively access.
Personally, I'd like to see if there are any laws in place right now from a county or a state standby giving us direction. So I'm going to ask Mr. Twillinger to look to see if there's any current laws in place that would indicate a position or person or title, whatever, can do whatever. I don't know. So I think that's something you could do the research on, because we don't want to get too far ahead of us if there's laws in place already. Supervisor Wild.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I support that letter. I support our attorney looking at the current laws. I do understand that emails are county property, but there were some allegations made Friday that surprised me, and I didn't comment because I wanted to reflect on what I'd heard. And one of the things that made me pause as I knew this meeting was coming up, through the allegations that were made, there was a consensus, I think, from a few people that smoked, that they were serious allegations. I'm wondering, where are we going with the investigation into those allegations? And what independent body is assigned for that investigation?
Okay, I'll comment on that in just a minute. Supervisor Bramer, did you have a comment?
I was just going to say, I think that that's certainly the opinions of Supervisor Conover and Wild, that they would like to create a new county policy. As a reminder, we are a board of 20, so we can't just as one committee put forward a policy that changes existing policy. I will note that given Supervisor Conover asking Ryan to work on the computer usage policy, I have also asked Mr. Colvin to look at that as well, and we will be at some point in the future bringing that through the Personnel Committee, which is the oversight committee for the IT department. So that is something there. And all I can say is about the allegations on Friday that by the member of the public is they are false, as was stated by the county. The allegations that that person made came out of nowhere.
And as we know, he didn't supply any information, any proof, any resources, nothing. He just made some allegations and the county has responded that they are 100% false. I would say then if this committee wants to bring that individual in front of it and have him provide the information, because I'd love to see a full investigation too. I would love to see that. So if my recommendation would be this committee asks that individual to come forth with his resources, his people that he got this information, his proof, because anybody can make an allegation. If there's no proof, it's shameful.
Well,
But I'm speaking, Mr. Wild, thank you.
understood.
So allegations are a dime a dozen. Proof and information is what drives the investigation. I am 100% for a full investigation, but we can't go forward with just allegations. We need to have some information from this individual where his proof is, so we can look into it. That's how I see it. Otherwise somebody could say, whatever. And so the county did respond, say it was 100% false. I don't know what else, but I would like to see an investigation from an independent source. But I think we need more information from the person making the allegations. Mr. Moore, what do you think?
I have no comment.
Okay. Okay, that's good. Mr. Conover?
Yeah, that goes back to my question. Ms. Bramer, you've used the name county. The county responded. Well, who is the county? In other words, look, whoever went to, I guess, to Don Lehman, I don't know who, and said, I want a response of the following, their name should have been on that, not Warren County. Did they ask you or any supervisors, were you asked to make a determination of whether something was true or not true? Or did you sign on to any kind of, my point is that, and I don't have any problem with that. Don't get me wrong, Ms. Bramer or any supervisor wants to issue a denial, that fine. I don't have a problem with that, or our administrative people. I don't have a problem with that. But what I'm saying to you is that you said, Mr. Chairman, that the county, well, the county, that's a big place, the county. And, and in terms of our governmental operations, I don't believe the county did issue that. I believe someone issued that. And I think that should be corrected. And I don't have any problem with anybody, anyone issuing a statement because you saying that you deny it. And if that's what you wish to do, you do it. I can't deny anything. In terms of my representative, I can't deny anything because I don't have any information to even judge at this stage, other than what I'm hearing secondhand or what's being delivered at a meeting. So we need to be careful with our language going forward. We need to be careful because out there now it says that all of us, we've denied it. And I haven't denied anything because I don't know what's true or not true. And so I think we need to be careful. And so whoever issued that statement, I think should take county off of it. And if they want to put their names on it, be my guest.
Mr. Wild?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Allegations and denial, they happen all the time. That's why I was wondering who the independent person who's going to investigate this. Someone was accused, someone denied. Who determines that? Do we as the board determine that? I'm not qualified to go through that, right? Is our county administrator or chair of the board or our supervisor Bramer, or maybe it's Supervisor McGowan or any other supervisor here qualified to make that independent judgment? I don't know. There was an agreement that there were pretty serious allegations. I've heard rumors that someone wanted to foil my personal emails. Well, that's fine. Come with a warrant. Tell me what you're looking for, right? Give me an idea of what it was that you're looking for. But then are you going to look at my business email? Are you going to look at my wife's email? Are you going to look at my children's email? We're starting to get in pretty deep here, right? So I think it's important that we understand that there's a certain standard that we should hold ourselves to, right? And if there's allegations of email searches and digging into things that could potentially lead to political retribution, then we've come far below that line of a standard. And we need to have things in place to stop that from happening. And per Supervisor Conover's statement is, we don't have anything in place. We don't have the checks and balances. I'm not accusing anyone of doing anything. I've heard rumors. I don't have any proof. Someone may have proof, but it's something that I think we should look into as a board to keep us above that standard. Just so we know. And it's so it doesn't happen again. So whatever we do going forward, you guys know, I'm not skilled at this game of setting policy and legislations and stuff like that. All I think about is where are we trying to go and where do we need to go and what should we do? Help me with the process. But what I'd like to see is some kind of thing in place to stop any question of any kind of political retribution of what's going on.
I'm all for that. I'm all for I'm sorry, you were.
I'm just curious who the independent person,
Well,
who the independent body is.
First of all, it's not me to say who the independent body is, but I'm all for an investigation, an independent investigation. I think the county will come out very well, but who knows? I don't know everything. And so, I'm all for that. Now, I don't know if it's this committee's place to create an investigation. It sounds more like a personnel issue to me, and a personnel committee should be taking it up because the allegations were against someone, in the county. So that's personnel, the way I read it. But maybe I'm reading it wrong. Ms. Bramer and then Mr. Garrity.
I was going to, with that, if you guys want to send it to personnel, certainly that's a way we can go as far as an investigation. Sure, let's have it. I would, as we're talking about what we're doing going forward, like to hear from some supervisors who have been here quite a long time as to what they've done in the past.
Okay.
With respect to personnel issues of this nature and how you handle going through an investigation.
Okay, first, Mr. Garrity.
Well, I can tell you it's 4 years as chairman of the board and a year and a half as administrator. I never would have looked at anybody's emails. And I'm vice chair of the personnel committee. I had no idea this ever happened. I wasn't brought in to any of this. I wouldn't go in and look at an employee's emails. I certainly would have taken it to the county administrator and probably the county attorney to get their take on this whole thing. I think it was what I heard the other day was the first I heard about allegations against a former employee of Warren County. I think there's serious allegations. I think it does affect that former employee's reputation. So I think it's terrible. It came out publicly. But as being vice chair of this personnel committee since January, I've never been opined on anything that's going on. But I can tell you, it's my tenure here, when if something was brought to us, a personnel issue had been taken to the personnel officer, probably discussed with the county administrator and a county attorney at the time. Me, as a county supervisor or chairman of personnel, would I ever go into anybody's emails? I think that's a violation of constitutional rights. I'm not happy about it. And I think it's despicable on our part to be going looking at somebody's emails. It better be better measure up why we felt it was proper to do. That's all I'm going to say. And excuse me, one other thing. I heard bits and pieces at the meeting, and then you got to read it Saturday morning in the Post-Star. And then I agree with Supervisor Conover. I didn't hear us say anything. We made no comment about the allegation. We ended discussion. And now for Warren County to put out a denial with not even knowing what the heck's going on, I'm not happy about that either. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Conover?
This entire discussion, I'm sure will take place. My focus right now, focus part of the board needs to be. Now, if personnel is where we want it, that's fine. This has more to do with just personnel themselves. Full governmental operations, how we handle our operation. And if it's not going to be here, if it's going to be in personnel, then I guess the personnel will have to be. But I brought it today because I have assumed that it's one of the governmental operations. But if we wanted other personnel, then I guess it can go under personnel. But frankly, something like this involves a lot of people in the board at large. So I'm not sure. Yes, personnel is not sure at this stage. So what I'll say is I've been trying to run this through in my mind. You know, how exactly this should be handled. But what I do know is I do know that there needs to be some due process here within our existing rules. I do know that people can be hurt. People can be hurt. Innocent people can be hurt. And that's my primary concern. That's the primary thrust of where I'm at on this, is that this stuff leaks out and then people through no fault of their own have their name mixed in with some type of issue, and
Mr. Conover?
that's really bad. And you know, we're paid to serve here. We all have broad shoulders and our names or whatever.
Speak up a little bit. Okay. Next time, Ron, speak up a little bit.
Oh,
Or loud.
it wasn't on the microphone.
Yeah.
Oh, I apologize.
They heard most
Well,
of it,
that's
but just
good.
at the end.
That spared people my sage advice, right? Okay. But you see where I am in this, and I think that you know that so how you want to handle it, I'm good with almost any part of our process. But what I am also concerned about is that innocent people, through no fault of their own, have their name, their good name, mixed in with stuff, and particularly civilians, right, or employees or whatever. And this stuff gets out and about, and it can affect their home front, it can affect their employment, a lot of damage can get done here in short order. And so I think we need to, or I wouldn't be have brought this up. I would not have sent my ideas to Ryan. I wouldn't have done this. I tell you, I consider this a very important thing that we do, and we need to do it quickly. Thank you.
Brad?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know what really baffles me is that we're all sitting here looking. Friday, I think, took us all by surprise on these alleged allegations. and that's they're all based on. But what really amazes me is that, you know, we're all sitting here, or what's left of us, and it was the first time hearing this on Friday, and this was heard from a neighbor, which I find very interesting. You know, and it is a shame because you're absolutely right. It could hurt the innocent, or it could open up some guiltiness. We don't know. You know, I'm not really sure what the intent of the whole public comment was. And it took me by surprise. So I'm not on the committee, but you're right. It is a big concern how we move forward in investigating and also coming up with the rules that Supervisor Conover is, you know, to protect us on the email. So thank you.
Ms. Bramer, did you have your hand up or not?
I don't, I'll just say, you know, unless I hear differently from this committee, I'll take it as a consensus from your members that you want personnel to look into it. As a committee, not,
Mr. Wild?
As an independent investigation, right?
yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well,
Yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we got Mr. Tollinger seeing if there's any current laws in place that give any individuals authority to look into an email. Just a point, and I'm thinking out loud here. What if there's an allegation that someone is doing something illegal? I'm still have the floor, Mr. Wild. Mr. Moore?
In my mind, I think the question you're asking, tell me if you're asking a different
I don't know.
question, is
I don't know what
if
I'm
you have
asking.
reason to believe or a reasonable suspicion that there's illegal activity occurring, is management allowed to utilize these resources and to get to the bottom of it?
I don't know. I'm spitballing, but yeah, maybe
If that's
that's
the question that you're asking, then I think that if we want to have a process and a policy that speaks to the rules of the road in handling a situation like that, again, I'm not opposed to that.
Yeah, that would make sense to me.
Yeah, a process that we're all comfortable with.
Yeah, makes sense to me. Okay, I'm gonna,
One more, you know.
one more,
The reason
Mr.
rules for the
Conover.
road, the reason we need specific rules for the roads, because absent that, all we have are generalities of authorities that exist within certain statutes. And those generalities are insufficient, in my humble estimation, in a situation like this. So that I think that we need to have some very specific language here dealing with this very specific subject. Otherwise, our agents are falling back on general authorities within the statutes, which are totally insufficient, I think. And were never designed or intended for anything like this.
Mr. Moore?
I thought about it over the weekend. I have my ideas of a process we might use. Supervisor Conover's provided his ideas, but I'd like to just state, and again, if supervisors have ideas, if you have opinions on what we need to look at, how we ought to approach this, please provide those to me, because I wouldn't, one thing I don't want to do is make a decision in a vacuum without input from supervisors.
And I'm looking forward to seeing what the laws, if there's some laws in the books now. You know, I can't believe that the state or even the county wouldn't have thought of some of these things before, but maybe they haven't. I don't know. Mr. McGowan?
Yes, thank you. Should we really be doing this in a full board? So we're not allegedly might be accused of doing something wrong?
Okay, thank you, Mr. McGowan. Mr. Wild?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pretty sure the state has some guidelines, or maybe some other counties have some guidelines, but I know business does. I wasn't party to them, but there are rules of the road in terms of being able to access that information. So I think we should look externally also, but I've looked at the current policy. There's some big gaps, and I'll look at with you guys and we'll talk some more. Thank you.
Yep. Before we conclude, I'm going to give a certificate of completion to Julie Butler. She wasn't here today, but for this, but she successfully completed her skills training in effective team management, leadership essentials, and conflict resolution. And I will be presenting it to Julie. She does a top-notch job, and For those on the video, I'm going to hold it up. I'm going to hold it up. Julie, this is coming your way. I'll stop over if you're still there. I think yeah. Can we have a standing ovation for Mr. McGowan? Thanks, Julie. Okay,
Motion to
final
adjourn.
comment, Ms. Bramer, and then we're motion to adjourn.
I've been waiting patiently to add this one to your maybe agenda or future consideration. Albany and Rensselaer counties just passed a local law requiring pharmacies to provide some sort of, I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it deactivates opioids so that if someone is having, I know it's about if they have extra left over, they can, I don't know what they do with this, but I think it's a good idea for us to at least consider helping with the end management of the opioid drugs.
Okay, so.
Maybe you can put it on, or maybe Ryan and I can look into it and perhaps bring it forward at a future meeting.
Would you put that on our agenda for next month to have a little more of a full-blown discussion on that when we have a few more members?
Yeah, not today.
That's something you get a charcoal bag that you crush, put them in there and you can throw them out.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I've already sent an email to two department heads to start working on that issue.
very good, Ryan. I'm going to give you a certificate too.
Reading my mind. Perfect.
Thank you. All right, motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Conover, second by Mr. Wild. All in favor?